So I have received a comment from someone, and this person has a question and says, I found this to be the most helpful video so far, Ascendor. Thank you so much. Could you please give some pointers on where people often make mistakes when it comes to non-doing, or where they become too attached even while just being? Because at the start point there is usually still identification, right? Yes. I remember when I used to watch non-duality videos, I still like to watch them, but when I used to watch those videos because I wanted to get some clarity or peace, you have to know I had a very neurotic mind, and my nervous system was almost on fire. It was very reactive. So I was watching those non-duality and spiritual videos of spiritual teachers, so I can have an understanding on how to not do. And I was asking, what should I do in order to not do anything? I wanted to have some red knob that I can press, and there's a big sign on it that says not doing. I wanted to do it right. I wanted to have the right method. There needs to be some kind of method there. And I feel a lot of people are having the same question that you have. How can we actually not do anything? How can we just simply be? You know, there's this natural reaction when someone with a very neurotic mind is closing their eyes and is given the instruction just to be in being, rest in being. And then there's this sense of restlessness there, and they feel like you're doing it wrong. So I can totally feel what you're saying here. And you know, there are seemingly some methods to get there, to become restful. And I was trying all of those. And I'm not saying that any of these are wrong, but I was trying all of those. You know, I was trying to focus on the breath. I was trying to be very attentive and listen to the sounds that are here. The thoughts were very strong. And I know that for some people who are very neurotic, this might help, you know, to just make the thought identification weaker and weaker. So if you want to make the thought identification weaker and weaker, you can just be attentive to what is. But my nervous system and my neurotic mind was so strong that it didn't work. So I kind of gave up at some point, and I remember I sat down and I set my alarm clock to 30 minutes. And then I sat down and just allowed my mind to do what it does. So it was thinking, identifying, and eventing, complaining a lot. And at that point I thought that this was total identification. I was just allowing to be my ego. I was just being my ego. At that point I thought that that was identification. But the strange thing is that I felt so relaxed, and my thoughts became weaker and weaker and weaker. And then I found out, wow, that's being. That's actual being. I'm allowing everything to be as it wants to be, and I'm not interfering. I'm not trying to change my mind. I'm not trying to control my mind. If it wants to complain, let it complain. So you asked me to give you some pointers to, you know, where people are still attached or identified when they think that they are actually being, but actually they are not actually being. They're identified still. One subtle identification is when you are separating yourself from the thought artificially, when you're kind of being here, and then there is a sense of effort, and you're looking at the thought, but you feel like you're separate from it. You're someone that you feel like you're pure awareness, but you feel like a ball of awareness that is looking at thoughts, but you don't want to be touched by them. You separate yourself from the thoughts, and then you think you're watching them. But that feels like effort. So there is still identification. You really have to allow the thoughts to touch you, to become one with you, because pure awareness cannot be touched. So you don't have to be afraid of being touched by thoughts. Another thing, as I've already mentioned, is when you have loud thoughts and you are scared of them because they're always complaining, and then you're trying to become extra aware, super attentive to the sounds, and you're still hoping for some peace to come in. You're very aware, almost concentrated, and you want your thoughts to subside. That is also identification. So, and there's nothing wrong about it, because when you do have a strong sense of self and thoughts, it can really be helpful to just practice being aware of the breath, or practice being aware of the sounds, your surroundings. Because it is possible that your thoughts and your identification will become weaker and weaker and weaker. But then there is still an identification. You can even get to a certain point where you almost have no thoughts. You feel a great sense of joy and peace, and you're aware all the time. But then there is still the sense of effort. It feels like you have to maintain this. You have to maintain this sense of being aware. So you're always aware. There is no thought, you feel peaceful, but there's still this sense of, I don't want to lose my awareness. I want to keep my awareness. So that's still a personal sense of doership there. But the awareness that you essentially are is not something you can do. So when you are aware, you almost shine like, the sun, because this awareness is like emanating sun rays, and there's no place for a thought in it. You're so aware, but you're scared to lose that awareness. What you can do is let go of that too. What can happen then is that thoughts may come back, but there's not a problem in it. You just are. There's not even a doing involved anymore. And suddenly you recognize that you are the subject resting in itself as itself. And then there is an appearance of everything that's around you, including thoughts, but that's not separate from you. You are resting in yourself. You feel unburdened, untouched, but still everything is welcome. And that's when your nervous system can truly come to this final resting point. And that's a kind of a journey. You kind of have to find it out for yourself, because when you're listening to spiritual teachers and non-duality people, they tell you, do this, do that, try to see it from that angle, and everybody's trying to make you understand, but in the end you have to do the inquiry for yourself, so you can speak from your own authority, not from what you remember, and really sink deep into yourself. And if you feel identified with thoughts, you can bring your awareness to something that has nothing to do with your personality, for example, the sounds. Be completely here. And what makes you think that you're still identified? Look at this feeling or this thought that says, I'm still identified, I still feel like there's effort. Maybe it isn't really effort, maybe it's just a feeling or a sensation in the body that feels tense, but that's also allowed to be. And once it is allowed to be in this field of awareness that you are, it stops being a problem. And then what can happen, it can naturally loosen up and just vaporize. So it is all about relaxation. People ask how to relax. And doing is the opposite of relaxation. So stop doing. Relaxation is not something you can do. It's not something you can understand. When you stop trying to understand, when you stop trying to get it, when you stop trying to grasp it, there is automatically a sense of relaxation. And then a different kind of energy or power can act through you. Because all this thinking is just taking all of your energy. Alright, so I hope you can relax and find your non-doing. And if you like this video, like it, subscribe, leave a comment, and have a great day.